Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Kristen Tedesco from Netradyne, and I'd like to introduce you to our presentation, Transforming Safety from a Cost Center to a Cost Saver. The speakers that we'll have today are Austin Schmidt from Netradyne. He's the Marketing Director, and then Bob Trent from PrePass. He's the Senior Vice President of External Affairs. And I'll let you two take it away. Thanks.
Thanks, Kristen. So with this presentation, we're going to start is on the cost side. This is going to be no surprise to any of you, but operational costs are rising fast. Diesel, which is going to make up about 25% of operational costs, is up 61% from 2017. Insurance premiums make up 5% of operational costs. We're up 22.5% from 2019 to 2020, and many continue to see increases into 2023. The average accident verdict or settlement costs a fleet $367,000, according to the American Trucking Research Institute, while the number of injury accidents involving large trucks increased over 25%. So all while salaries, health insurance, tolling, and recruiting compliance costs for drivers and back office staff continue to rise. This is happening at a time that for all of you in trucking, a lot of freight rates and a lot of sectors have came under some pressure. And for those of you not in trucking, many of our revenues and margins in the current economic climate have become in more pressure than past years. So clearly, if our costs are rising and our revenues coming under some pressure, this is not sustainable. Our environment is requiring all of us to rethink parts of our business. And there's a quote from Charles Darwin, who's best known for the theory of evolution, that says, "It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but it's the one that's the most adaptable to change." And also a quote that I love from another historical figure, Littlefinger from HBO's show Game of Thrones, that says, "Chaos isn't a pit, chaos is a ladder." And if you look at times of economic upheaval throughout history, there's Disney in the Great Depression, there was Google during the tech bust, and then there was Uber during the great financial crisis. Just a few examples of companies that absolutely exploded and took market share from other competitors during times of economic upheaval by rethinking the ways that we approach our industries and approach our businesses. So what if you could coach drivers more often without needing additional hires, or alert drivers to upcoming road hazards and important locations? What if you could get your drivers obsessed with saving fuel and driving safely and preventing moving and toll violations? Or keep your best drivers longer to reduce those recruiting costs? What if you could control insurance costs to have lower increases than your competitors? Or improve your fleet safety so that your fleet qualifies to bypass way stations at highway speed? Or avoid delays and wait times at toll booths? Like, what impact could that have to your business over your competitors? So I've got good news and I've got bad news. We'll start with the bad. So just cameras, apps, transponders, or most other technologies alone will probably not have a huge impact on your costs. But if you apply those technologies with some of the best practices that we're going to cover in this presentation, along with the two key principles of the science of change, this will. So the science of change, rule number one, instant feedback. There's a study called Timing Matters, the impact of immediate and delayed feedback on artificial language learning, where the researchers assessed the impact of immediate versus delayed feedback on learning a second language. And here's what they found, that just a 2 to 3 second delay reduced a student's ability to learn from mistakes by over 21%. There's also the recency bias. This is a cognitive bias that favors recent events over historic ones, and this can lead to increased levels of defensiveness if not handled correctly, and fray relationships and boosting driver turnover. So the takeaway I would like you to get from this is that the science of change tells us that recency is a huge factor in our ability to identify areas for improvement and learn. So to me, that says that the quarterly safety meeting is no longer enough. We need to change our approach. So the science of change, rule number two, positive reinforcement. There was a study at a North Shore University Hospital in New York, and here's what they did. They were trying to get their staff to increase the percentage of times that they were basically washing their hands and going through the full sanitation cycle, right? They made the expectations clear. They put punishments in place if somebody was caught not washing their hands. And they even went as far to install cameras by the sinks, but their compliance rates were about 10%. So they completely turned their approach on its head. They started adding signs that gave positive reinforcement and even adding gamification for which teams had the highest hand washing scores. And what happened is almost instantly, the hand washing compliance rates increased over 9 times. There's a quote from Charlie Munger, who is Warren Buffett's fairly silent business partner. He has a quote that says, "You show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome." What Charlie means by this is there's a theory called operant conditioning, which is a method of learning supported by hundreds of studies that employs rewards for behavior. So it's putting this really simply, we're all wired to adjust our behavior, often subconsciously, to get the outcomes that we want. Summarizing the science of change, instant feedback, faster feedback is more effective, and then positive reinforcement. Carrots are stronger than sticks. So let's get into the cost savings opportunity. The first one and one of the biggest ones, fuel. So aggressive driving behavior, characterized as speeding or rapid acceleration, can lower fuel economy by 15 to 30%, according to a study from the US Department of Energy. And also, according to the North American Council for Freight Efficiency, every mile per hour over 60 reduces fuel economy by 1/10 of a mile per gallon. Also, not maintaining appropriate safety scores disqualifies a motor carrier from the ability to bypass a weigh station, costing an average of half a gallon of fuel each time a driver gets pulled in for an inspection, according to the FMCSA. And so some high level math, what this could look like for your business. So if you're running 520 miles per day, you have 30 trucks getting about 6.5 miles per gallon at a diesel price of 392. Just getting a 5% efficiency boost, not even the low range of the study by the US Department of Energy, will save you over 10 grand per month. You can get the lower end of that range at 15%, you're going to save over $31,000 per month. So on the fuel side, there is a massive opportunity for margin expansion and efficiency. And I'm going to turn it over to Bob.
Thanks, Austin. So I talk to motor carriers all the time. We with our PrePass program, we are focused on safety. We're the PrePass Safety Alliance that provides PrePass as a nonprofit public-private partnership. So we have a mission, and that mission is safety and efficiency on America's highways. But what's remarkable to me is that I like to think that our customers buy into that idea that highway safety, just for highway safety's sake, is ultimate and why they purchase and subscribe to PrePass. But really, it's not. I hear over and over again that at a certain point, as a motor carrier is growing from 1 to 5 to 10 to 25 to 50 trucks or more, there's that decision point, at a point of inflection where they realize the best way to operate is safely, not just because it's in the best interest of their drivers and their organization and the other motorists, but it's the best way to operate a successful motor carrier. It's more predictable, everybody's happier, there's more reward from it, and it's just more reliable, as I mentioned, predictable. So there's another way that you can, I think, save money, and your safety record really qualifies that you to become a PrePass customer. The idea being there is certainly incentive if you'd like to bypass to lower your ISS score, to improve your safety record, because you bypass more often, and it becomes, I think, as Austin just mentioned, tangible, very measurable. It's the idea that these are little small savings. 5 minutes of time with the bypass, half a gallon of fuel, about $8.50 every single time you make a bypass or get one, when otherwise you might get pulled in. So it seems small, just little nickels in the bucket, but that adds up. We all grew up kind of with the adage, put a little away of each paycheck, and it adds up. And in fact, it does. We know that a carrier, on average, their trucks are bypassing about 12 times every single month. And so a service like ours that to begin with is relatively inexpensive begins to pay for itself. There are lots more benefits to that as well. So this drills down to that a little bit more. as I mentioned, for each individual bypass, there's about 5 minutes of savings, $8.50, 5 minutes in time savings, $8.50 in actual operational costs. We had, let's say, just one customer. We're taking a look at different routes, driving from California to New Jersey. They saved an average every time of 80 minutes in travel time, $80 in operational costs, and about $40 in fuel. And that's every route. In 2021 alone, we saved our customers more than about $24 million bypassing just 16 way stations along I-80. One of the, I think, primary benefits to that, again, is not only are we saving fuel and thereby increasing operational savings, but we're also reducing emissions. And more, we certainly are seeing vendors, suppliers, and shippers want to see that motor carriers are doing what they can, in addition to just more efficient and cleaner trucks, what all they are doing to reduce greenhouse gases. And honestly, bypassing is one of those that does. I think we have so far about 935,000 metric tons of greenhouse gases reduced or not emitted as a result of our bypass program.
All right, looking at cost savings opportunity number 2, moving toll violations. So monetary fines. In California, for example, texting and driving can cost a company an $11,000 fine. And there's CSA scores, the big one. While it can be more difficult to calculate, the probability impact can be very meaningful. For example, a poor CSA score can reduce your access to the best paying loads, especially in competitive freight markets. You can also increase your insurance premiums, increase your audit risk. Nobody wants that. And also reduce your ability to get those bypass way stations that Bob just covered can be so ROI positive. There's also toll statements. So there's multiple agency invoices, incorrect charges, toll violations, and toll disputes become increasingly complex and time consuming as you grow. So looking at the cost savings solution here, one area is real-time coaching. And in this, we're going to revisit those principles of the science of change. First, recency. It is critical that you are able to provide alerts for things like aggressive driving when the behavior occurs, so drivers can understand the issue and correct it before burning more fuel or before receiving a ticket or a violation. And once the drivers became aware of behavior that is either unsafe or inefficient for the business, it's very important to have positive reinforcement with as close to the activity itself as possible, right? Because you can make somebody aware the behavior needs to change. The science of change tells us that the way to really take that awareness and make it into a habit is through consistent and near real-time positive reinforcement. And last, also on the science of change, incentives. So if you give drivers real-time, transparent insight into how they're performing against their aggressive driving reduction goals right on their phone, we've seen it time and time again that if you give drivers the tools they need to understand how they're tracking against those goals, they will take charge of their career and they'll take charge of their paycheck and exceed those goals that are going to help you not just operate safer, but save money.
That's right. Another way to engage drivers and to increase safety is to give them real-time alerts as they are moving down the freeway. The ability here is to notify a driver of an upcoming driver safety issue, whether it's a dangerous curve, high winds. We can also do some dynamic real-time alerts, and those are available to, I think, across the market that will alert a driver as they're coming up on, again, an ever-changing traffic situation on the freeway, whether it's a dangerous slowdown that they're approaching so they don't get caught unprepared, or a work zone. Again, those come up and go down on a relatively frequent basis. And being able to predict, a mile or two in advance that there's going to be an issue, and they can either begin to prepare themselves to slow down, react accordingly, or change route. So now it's not just a driver safety alert, it becomes an efficiency, a productivity alert as well. The ability to deliver that, not just as an alert inside the cab that's visual, and again, the alerts typically reflect what a roadside would look like. It's the audible as well. As we certainly don't want drivers needing to interact with a device in the cab as they move down the freeway, a driver hearing notifications as they come down the road, way station approaching, you've been bypassed, or that there is perhaps a traffic incident ahead. They don't have to take their eyes off the road. They hear it, they can react appropriately. And not only is that driver, operating more safely, he can actually operate more efficiently, again, by changing his route. The other opportunity here is to streamline tolling. There are a few benefits, and again, as a nonprofit with a highway safety and efficiency mission, we really do think that there's a safety benefit by keeping that truck on the main line. Put a transponder in the window as they drive down the road. They don't have to exit, encounter a toll booth, pay cash, they don't have to carry cash anymore. They can just stay on the main line. We know that every time a truck exits and re-enters a freeway, that's one of the most risky times for a truck involved crash. The idea being, again, if they can stay on the main line, we're reducing that risk immediately. But the benefits go far beyond that of just a comprehensive toll management service. You can save money by discounted toll volumes. You can improve efficiency. And this is something that we see and hear from our customers all the time. The benefit of having one invoice from all agents, from all agencies, for all trucks, all transactions. They can look at it, they can compile it, they can look for different anomalies, whether it's a max toll, find issues throughout the course of their routes if they choose to toll. Many carriers toll despite the cost, despite the headaches. Well, we want to help with that. In fact, we can help with that. Another benefit, aside from just having one invoice for all transactions, is having one point of contact. If you're a small carrier, even a medium-sized carrier, certainly with limited time and staff, and you have an issue, tracking down which agency, which number to call, having a toll management service takes care of all of that for you. You have one point of contact, one bill to pay, and we can add some support behind that as well. We can automatically resolve disputes. We can help you quickly identify if there's improper use or improper charges. And then again, we can help you avoid delays. There's that interesting aspect that because the truck is staying on the main line, you have many of the same, although not perhaps as quantified, benefits as a bypass. Because you're staying on the main line, you're saving time, you're saving fuel, and you're saving money.
All right, cost savings opportunity number 3, accidents and litigation. So according to the American Trucking Research Institute, the average verdict or settlement cost the fleet $367,000. This is despite the fact that, according to a University of Michigan Transportation Research Institute study, that when passenger vehicles and commercial vehicles are involved in injury accidents, the passenger vehicle is actually assigned an at-fault behavior 81% of the time. And additionally, 37% of injury accidents actually happen on the side of the commercial vehicle. So the chart on the right, what you're looking at is injury accidents per mile involving large trucks with the data from the FMCSA. From 1999 to 2009, there's a clear trend. Injury accidents per mile, they drop, and they drop fast. This is a testament to your high hiring standards, the technology you've implemented, and the dedication to driver safety coaching that you all have. It's very impressive, this trend line. But the data doesn't lie. In 2010, something changed here. And I would argue that it's not that your hiring standards went down or you stopped caring about adding better technology or stopped your dedication to driver coaching. I would argue what happened is the smartphone started to get adopted in the United States. And you can see from 2010 to 2019, the correlation between US smartphone adoption and injury accidents per mile has almost perfect correlation. And the takeaway here is not necessarily that your drivers are texting and driving. The point and conclusion I would draw from this is that it's the drivers around your vehicles that are texting and driving and TikToking and driving. Put another way, the environment that your business is operating in has gotten fundamentally more dangerous. So the way you protect your business must also fundamentally change. The cost-saving solutions here, holistic exoneration. And here's what I mean by that. The first thing is it's crucial to have complete visibility. So you need 360-degree visibility around the truck. In the last slide, we covered that 37% of injury accidents actually happen on the side of the commercial vehicle. And you need it in full HD for that clarity, because sometimes just having a license plate number can make all the difference. And also look for a solution that can record and analyze 100% of drive time. Like, I can't tell you how many fleets that came to us who they did the right thing. They installed cameras, but when the time came where they needed that footage, because their camera was either trigger based or based with an SD card, it missed the event and the fleet was kind of hung out to dry. So in this one, make sure that you pick a solution where you're going to have 100% of drive time available to you, so you know you have the proof you need when you need it. And also a proven culture of safety. So attorneys are increasingly going after a fleet safety record rather than the event itself. So quarterly safety meetings are no longer enough. The new standard is really a proactive weekly coaching approach. So cost savings opportunity number 4, run a lean back office. A single additional hire can cost a carrier $70,000 to $130,000. And for some businesses, the ability to forward invest is limited, or this overhead can even cancel out the operational cost increases. So many fleets find themselves in a bit of a chicken or the egg situation between understanding the opportunity, but not having the resources to actually execute on it.
Yeah, Austin, you're right. Data information is powerful. From on the safety side, what we see again, the states have different criteria about what a safety score is allowable, which is safety score is allowable to bypass. And so obviously each carrier wants to be under that safety score. But as fleets grow, it becomes more and more difficult to identify, well, why is my ISS score rising? What is the specific issue? And again, having a kind of a comprehensive software platform that can look into your inspection records, what's going on with your trucks, what are the violations when they're being inspected, are they being inspected at all, which is a huge problem during COVID. Being able to quickly identify where the risks are to a safety score and to safety overall, and then train into that using this kind of little actionable bites of information. We're seeing some maintenance issues that are leading to violations during an inspection, or we're seeing speed is an issue. Each of these can be quickly identified with our informed tolling software on the safety side that can drill down and find those immediately, and you can put that into practice in your next safety meeting. Again, it's not just saying that you want to be a safe carrier, it's acting on that idea, again, because it's the best way and most efficient way and probably the most profitable way to run a motor carrier. The other is tolling as well. And again, I touched on this before, but being able to drill down into your transactions, not just to find improper tolls or to find out how much you're spending on a route, which is important as well, but to perhaps find alternatives. Or perhaps find challenges like trucks that are getting violations that shouldn't be. Maybe those should be enrolled in a tolling program if they're not already. And then having some automation behind that, so that when you see a dispute or a max toll, that the vendor, in this case PrePass, already sees that as well, and we can dispute those automatically on your behalf. And so all of a sudden we've taken this vast universe of data and we've taken it down to little bite-sized pieces that are actionable. And again, as I mentioned, carriers choose to toll despite the cost and the administrative headaches. We want to take that burden off. We want to help. We understand the problem. So that's the whole idea behind the tolling aspect of our Inform program, is really being an asset, another help in managing your tolling program, and making sure that what you pay is only the amount that you should pay when you encounter a toll.
All right, so streamline coaching. Key here is addressing problems as they happen. That real-time in-cab coaching is crucial. And then also, once that awareness of behavior has been made with in-cab alerts, using positive reinforcement with instant feedback. So it's really important to have an option where the drivers can be coached on trends in a weekly and automated virtual coaching review, where they can actually review instances of maybe where they could operate in a different manner with video examples. So think homework, not a trip to the principal's office in this regard. So with the time freed up by having a lot of the coaching that your team would typically do handled by the driver themselves, your team can really focus on those drivers who need that extra help, and fewer driver managers may be needed with a partially automated model. And also, telematics data can provide precise recommendations to dial in on customized training for each driver. Cost savings opportunity in 5, keep great talent. So there's a study by the Upper Great Plains Transportation Institute that estimated the cost to replace a driver is over $8,000. And the price to replace a great driver, that's just incalculable. So some rough math on this: if you have 50 drivers with a hiring cost of over $8,000, using the ATA's data of 78% turnover rate, just a 10% increase or decrease in this could be a swing of $32,000 there. So this is, of course, a very significant cost savings opportunity for your business.
The drivers are so important to this equation. We know from surveys that we take that there are usually, every single time we ask, the 3 top benefits that an employer can provide a driver, a motor carrier can give to a driver. And one, it's time at home. Usually it's, the very top is also pay. And then somewhere in there is bypass, the fact that the motor carrier is providing bypass to the cab of the truck so the driver can get from point A to point B more predictably. I think this last year, actually, bypass provided by a motor carrier scored higher than time at home, which is a little bit concerning, but that might just be an anomaly. We just know that it's important. I can't tell you how many times I've been at a trucking event and you mentioned that you're from PrePass, and the drivers would just come up and hug you. They love to hear that tone or to see that bypass, because they know immediately they are going to get to their destination more predictably and more reliably. And Phoenix Transportation found that same thing. Interestingly enough, and I heard that we were going to feature Phoenix Transportation, I thought, interesting, because Phoenix left PrePass because they weren't getting inspected often enough. We were doing our job, the trucks were bypassing, but so frequently that their trucks weren't getting inspected. And so they thought that by going away from a bypass program and getting pulled in, that would in fact give them the opportunity to show that they were safe operators and lower their ISS score. And to a certain degree that it worked, but a couple of things happened when that occurred. One is that driver frustration goes through the roof. When they have to pull over, they know that there's an overall benefit to getting into the weigh station, and certainly the state enforcement folks think this as well. That interaction, there can be better safety practices that come out of that inspection process. And Phoenix was a safe carrier, and their ISS scores did begin to drop. But again, that driver dissatisfaction of, that driver thinking, because of this pull-in, I'm not going to make it home tonight. That's an issue. The other is, when they went away, they took away the tolling as well. And then all of a sudden, rather than having one invoice from PrePass, one point of contact for service and support, one device in their windshield for both tolling and bypass, well, now they're managing that themselves. Multiple tolling agencies, multiple trucks, multiple transactions. I know a number of carriers that simply pay their tolling invoices without auditing them at all, because the cost to spend time routing, kind of rooting through all those, kind of collating and figuring out where the problem charges are, it's simply too costly to devote staff time to that, or they just don't have the staff to do that at all. And so it became quickly apparent that they needed to come back to PrePass, and then we were able to again coach them through informed safety, and they were able to identify those issue areas to lower their safety scores as well. And so they got really the better of both worlds.
All right, and cost saving solution number 5, smart incentives. So as we covered in this presentation, positive reinforcement is incredibly powerful, but so is money. And you can make them work together. The results are incredibly powerful. There are few key factors to consider here. One, can your people easily understand their progress to goal? It's very helpful and it really helps the effectiveness of your incentive programs. If your drivers can just open an app, see where they're currently tracking towards their goals, where they need to be, and then ideally some steps or tips to help them get from A to B. When you really put your drivers in control and give them that visibility, they tend to rise to the challenge, and you really see impressive performance improvements there. The other consideration are all parties internally working towards the same objective. One example here is, let's say that you are incenting your drivers on safe driving and not speeding, but perhaps maybe your dispatch team is solely incentivized on time deliveries. This is one example of maybe you can see how things can sometimes clash a little bit. We really recommend that you try to get everybody going towards the same incentives and the same scores and have that alignment to the extent possible. So the way a lot of our customers do that is what we call the green zone score. So the green zone score is our unique scoring methodology that looks at the entire driving day rather than just a handful of negative events. Let's factor in, of course, the risky events from a driver, but more importantly, also factoring in the great driving they did and putting that into one holistic score that we call the green zone score. You can measure drivers, terminals, any group of drivers, whether that's for a safety coach, etc., on this green zone score. And we find that a lot of companies like to base a good chunk around their incentive programs around this score because it really is just easy for everybody to understand because it's one simple number. And this really gets a great alignment for everybody. So opportunities summary. Good CSA scores can help you bypass way stations, non-aggressive driving, and then keeping it close to 60 miles per hour can really save on your fuel costs. Next, reducing time and money spent on moving violations and toll violations through safe driving, real-time driver alerts and coaching, and toll passes. Running lean back office with software that summarizes fleet data trends and automated coaching apps for drivers. Then also keeping great talent by offering smart incentives for drivers, giving them that toll and bypass that's so important to them, and really making their time on the road more efficient and more satisfying. So I want to finish it here. Our environment has changed, so how will you adapt? Because remember, it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It is the one the most adaptable to change. So that's it for the presentation today. So what's next? It's time to execute. What we covered here is the ideas and the kind of the high level. This is the easy part. Of course, executing on it, this is the important part. We have a couple of resources we'd like to leave you with that we're going to put in the email of this recording. The first resource is 11 tips for getting driver buy-in with video dash cams. It's a great blueprint on just best practices for really not just implementing cameras and technology, but managing change internally. And I'll turn it over to Bob to talk about a blueprint they have.
That's right. We're also going to offer a piece called See the Numbers, learn how waste station bypass adds up to big savings on time, fuel, and money. And it just goes into some of the nuts and bolts, how best practices of how other carriers are putting into bypass and the benefits that they're receiving, and many of which we covered here today. But the safety benefit, I think, not just from a concept, but as an actual operational focus, does lead to significant tangible benefits, in money, time, and fuel. And so this tool, we think, will help you find those.
Great, thank you. And if you guys have any questions about the presentation today, or just any questions in general, please do respond to the email from which you're getting this recording, and either Bob or I or somebody on our team will be in touch with you to talk through any questions you have. So I really appreciate everybody joining the presentation today.